the OEDIT, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade for the state of Colorado, and call out Startup Colorado, as well as Civic Canopy for all the support that they are bringing to it. And then again, the Colorado SBDC has been a wonderful partner, not only for us, but for entrepreneurs and small business owners all over the state over the last month and a half, and moving forward. So we thank them, and we ask that you would certainly thank them and take advantage of the supports that they have available during this time. So next slide. Just to give you a quick rundown of what we've got coming today. We've got Charlie Anderson with Senator Bennett's office to chat about some upcoming legislation that's being proposed. Then we're going to talk with Jordan Buck, who is from Eads, Colorado, as a business attorney, and just kind of talk about some of the legal issues that small businesses might be wrestling with or thinking about as they move forward. And then we're going to talk with a panel of small business owners and entrepreneurs from Southeast Colorado here, and hear about how they're approaching business right now, what they're thinking about the future. And then from there, just a couple of things to wrap up, looking forward into next week and talking about a few resources that are available to small businesses. So with that, I think let's go to the next slide. And I want to just go ahead and introduce Charlie Anderson right off the top from Senator Bennett's office. And as he's preparing to speak, I want to draw your attention to the screen, and to any of you that are listening, let you know that if you've got some thoughts or feedback, questions about what Charlie's sharing today, please send an email to startupco@colorado.edu, so that we can pass those questions along, see if we can get some answers and some clarification on that. And also would encourage you to use the question and answer live as we go through the entire call today. So Charlie, with that, it's all yours.
Great, thanks John, and thanks everybody for joining the call. We can go to the next slide. So I'm here to talk about two new bipartisan proposals to help the hardest hit small and mid-sized businesses. We just put forward a plan this week with Senator Todd Young, who's a Republican from Indiana. This is the first piece addresses sort of PPP fixes, and the second is sort of what comes after PPP for the second half of this year. So we can go to the next slide. So the first being the near-term fix, as you all know, Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, has an 8-week covered period that begins right after the origination of the loan. And as we know, there were limited funds initially, $350 billion. Those have been replenished since, but each time in first and second tranche, there were limited funds, caused people to rush to apply. Businesses were unable to adjust the timing of their application to when they were prepared to relaunch. And so therefore, you can't delay the start of that covered period. So a lot of businesses were in a position, especially, sit-down restaurants or other hospitality businesses or gyms or, you name it, salons, where the covered period, the 8-week period that they had to spend out the money and for which they were getting the loan forgiveness, happened when they were all completely or mostly shuttered. And so we've heard loud and clear from a lot of folks like you that needs to get fixed. And so we work with Todd Young, and we have a pretty simple fix, which is for businesses that have fewer than 500 full-time equivalent employees that have seen revenues decline by more than 25%. So the hardest hit businesses, and that's generally pretty lenient hardest hit sort of threshold. We would extend the 8-week covered period to deploy PPP funds and get loan forgiveness to 16 weeks. You double the period. So regardless of when you got it, those next 8 weeks, you can continue to spend on payroll and then get the full amount of loan forgiveness if you're able to make all of those expenditures on eligible costs and meet the standards of the program. Next slide, please. So we also need a longer term strategy. I think we all are recognizing that this is going to be a tough and uncertain period for businesses. And, PPP has worked well for some businesses for sure, but it certainly could be more effective for businesses that, should be receiving the most support. And that's, we saw that PPP had its limitations when it came to the smallest businesses, often those without a strong banking relationship, minority owned, women owned, and rural businesses that may not have had that sort of strong banking relationship. And the hardest hit businesses, you've seen really sharp revenue declines. And so, some of those limitations, in the bill, in the PPP program, such as the 8-week duration of the loan period, which I just mentioned, 2.5 times payroll loan size, and the 25% cap on non-payroll forgiveness, those kinds of limitations that were imposed because the size of the program was capped, also made it difficult for some of the businesses that really needed the support to get the support. And I think there's sort of a conversation going on of, some people are critical of the PPP program and they say, well, we shouldn't do it anymore. And I think our version of it is, let's make sure we're helping the businesses that really need the most help, that maybe didn't get as much help or didn't get any help at all. So we can go to the next slide. And what we're doing to do that is called the Restart Program. And so that, eligibility again would be for businesses with a substantial revenue hit, 25% decline from 2019 to 2020, for the period just before COVID to just after. And we'd have adjustments for seasonal businesses and new businesses as well. Up to 5,000 FTEs with enhanced loan forgiveness terms for businesses with fewer than 500 FTEs. And the loan size would basically be 6 months, a loan sized to meet 6 months of payroll benefits and fixed operating expenses, up to a lesser of 45% of 2019 receipts or $10 million. And the forgiveness would be based on revenue losses suffered in 2020 versus 2019. And the remainder would be repaid as a loan over 7 years. And so that piece really recognizes some of the limitations of PPP, in that many businesses that didn't suffer a big revenue loss still got a lot of forgiveness, while a lot of businesses that did suffer a big revenue loss either couldn't take advantage of the program because of limited funds, or felt like it wasn't going to work for them because of that 8-week period. And so what we're saying is, look, if you need the capital to get back up and running, you can take a loan here. If you're able to get back up and running and get your revenues back up, then that's just going to be a loan at pretty favorable terms. If you're not able to get back up and fully running and you take a big revenue hit, we're going to help fill in some of that gap with loan forgiveness. And so it basically will help businesses relaunch, but not have to take on the risk of having a situation where you can't get your revenues back up and you're stuck with a big loan. And so the loan terms for what remains, what isn't forgiven, you'd have a 4% fixed rate for the first 2 years. And then it would be a floating rate over AFR, which is sort of an applicable federal rate, which is a pretty low rate, sort of like a 10-year treasury rate. And so that would adjust. If the economy's better, it'd be higher. If the economy's worse, it'd be lower. And importantly, we wouldn't have any interest payments due in the first year, and we'd have no principal due in the first 2 years, and there'd be additional deferment for businesses that were distressed beyond that. And so we give some sort of time to pay it back, time to get back up and running, and it's meant to accommodate some of the things we're hearing about the uncertain path forward. So with that, I'll stop and turn it back over.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. We'll certainly be watching for more information as it becomes available. And again, I want to remind everybody, if you've got questions, please send those to startupco@colorado.edu so we can get those passed along and help get some feedback for that. So I know that the Senator's office has been very, very interested in getting some feedback and hearing about questions and thoughts. So we appreciate that, Charlie, and we'll certainly send through everything that we get. So
thanks so much. Yeah, your feedback will be really helpful in shaping the proposal, so we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, with that, let's move to the next slide. And I want to introduce Jordan Buck. And Jordan, I thank you for joining us today to chat with small business owners about some of the things that they maybe are struggling with and that they're thinking about. And so I'm going to let you do your own introduction. Give us a brief introduction to who you are, and then take it from there.
All right, thank you, John. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I grew up in Southeast Colorado. I actually grew up in Eads, and now I own Buck Law, which is a business and estate planning law firm serving people and businesses in Eastern Colorado. So I actually have a satellite office in Eads right now and hope to have another office in Ray by the end of the year. So I'm really here today to talk about some legal issues surrounding reopening our businesses And if you want to go to the next slide, we'll actually just click one more time through. I kind of have two goals here with this conversation. One is just keying in on the legality of opening your business based on the latest executive order and kind of the guidance that's there. I want to parse out the, what's mandatory from a legal perspective, and then what's also just guidance and at your discretion as a business owner. And then the last part will be 5 practical steps or maybe even considerations moving forward with your business. So if we want to go to the next slide. Okay, so given the time constraints here, I'm just going to hit the high points, but if you guys have questions, I'm happy to follow up offline after this presentation. So the first thing is really understanding the authority and where our law comes from. Obviously, there's 3 sources, so that's the federal, the state, and then the local. We're going to just key on the state and the local for this conversation because it's applicable to reopening our businesses. So at the state level, we've all seen the executive orders and to maybe a lesser degree, the public health orders. So these 2 orders work in conjunction during emergency situations. And they provide the law and they have the force of law. So as we reopen, we now have the Safer at Home executive order. And so that's going to have some mandatory legal requirements and then also some guidance. So I'll work through that. At a county level, I want you to also be aware as business owners that your local county could have additional restrictions or maybe it's less restrictive. So I've included on the resources page after this presentation a link to go check your individual county, just so you can have an idea of additional things that you may need to key into. Okay, so let's move down to complying with the law guidelines, looking at the Safer at Home executive order. So this is in effect for 30 days from April 27th to May 27th. And really this is the portion, we all know this, we're reopening for small businesses. And the big dates here were May 1 and May 4, but moving forward, I just wanna point out some of the mandatory directives. So I'm gonna talk about a few different situations. If your business, if you find yourself in any of these situations, make sure you follow up because there are some mandatory laws that you have to apply with here. So the first thing is if you have employees or workers who are dealing with finding childcare or they are providing caretaker responsibilities and they're struggling to get to work, you have the obligation to accommodate them, meaning you need to work with them for remote work options or other flexible schedules. That's part of this executive order. The second thing is if you have a worker who has tested positive for COVID-19, has symptoms, or has been directed to quarantine, based on the executive order, there will be an extension of paid sick leave. So if you find yourself in this situation, make sure you understand what the paid sick leave, really what is required in this executive order. The next thing is, and this may be a smaller portion of some of our businesses in Southeast Colorado, but if you have 50 employees in one location, there are heightened protocols in terms of symptom screening, temperature, cleaning protocols. So make sure you comply with those things if you are in that category. Next is the non-critical health service providers. So I'm talking about chiropractors, acupuncturists. Right now with the executive order, when you are working with your clients or your patients, you need to be wearing a medical grade mask and gloves. And then additionally for personal service providers like your salons, you need to be wearing gloves as well. In addition, you probably are going to institute other precautions, but as far as what's required and mandated, those are the things. And then finally, I just want to make sure moving forward with this executive order for the next 30 days, we also have the prohibition on the gathering of more than 10 people in public spaces. That's continued. It may continue even further. And then the mandatory social distancing, which really needs to be a consideration as you restart your businesses and maybe redesign your place of business to accommodate that. In terms of what's discretionary in the executive order or more of just guidance, it's not required. The CDH really says that everyone should be wearing masks when they go in public, and then your employees should also be wearing masks. I want to point out here, the word is should, and should is not mandatory. That's discretionary. So use your best judgment as a business owner, and make those decisions that will help you and your employees stay safe, in addition to your customers or clients. Okay, moving on to best practices. From a liability perspective and just limiting our risk a little bit, it's probably best. I'm thinking more of the smaller business owners. It would be good if you guys could create a system and document this. So, are you requiring employees to wear masks? Are you changing the design of your business to accommodate to the social distancing or the 6 feet apart? What do your employees need to know as they operate in your business to keep customers and themselves safe? And you want to communicate this to your employees as well. The other side of that token is use this time to really educate your customers and your clients. People are scared right now. They don't understand what precautions each business is taking. So, you can use really cost-effective ways like social media, your website, local newspapers to communicate what you're doing to keep customers safe. And, that could even just be a sign at the door, but spreading the word so customers, clients, they know what to expect when they come to your business. This also, just from a legal perspective, is kind of, the risk tolerance here and kind of protecting your liability. This could be helpful. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to touch on some high points here, but 5 practical steps moving forward, with most of my time kind of spent on this first piece, which is commercial leases. I know right now it's really scary. If you're a landlord or you're a tenant renting the space for your business, there's just a lot of uncertainty and money is super tight right now. So I just want to go over Executive Order 51, which is different than the Safer at Home order. And this executive order is in effect from April 30th to May 30th. So for this 30-day period, the executive order is limiting commercial evictions. So if you are a landlord, you cannot initiate eviction procedures during this time. And also, as a tenant, understand what your rights are in that capacity. If you are a landlord, this part is really important. You cannot charge fees or penalties for late payment or non-payment of rent during this 30-day period while the executive order is in place. And that may extend again after this one expires, but that's just not allowed. So from a legal perspective, don't do it. Really work with your tenants to try to come up with a solution to help them, make those payments. And maybe that looks like prorating them over the term of the lease and just adding a little bit every month moving forward. But from the tenant's perspective, understand that under this executive order, and even though you can't be evicted and you may not be able to pay your rent, you still have to comply with the lease or whatever contract you entered. And those things just don't go away. So make sure you understand that from that perspective. Okay, number 2 is renegotiate your contracts. This is kind of just a practical tip that, you could take if it feels right and you have a relationship with your vendors and suppliers. Maybe you renegotiate payment terms. Maybe renegotiate other terms in the short term. Contracts are really flexible. So if you can, work with your vendors or suppliers, that could be great. Make sure that's in writing and signed by both parties to make that official. Okay, so moving to the next is deferring payroll taxes. I want to start out with a caveat here. If you have received PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, you are no longer eligible for the deferring payroll taxes. So that's kind of like the baseline. But if you didn't receive PPP, then this could be a good option to keep some money in your business in the short term and help you that way. So the CARES Act allows employers to defer payment of the employer's share of payroll taxes. And to some degree, this also applies to self-employed individuals. But basically, your payroll taxes incurred between March 27th and December 31st can actually be deferred out to the next 2 years. So you could defer out 50%, pay 50% of those deferred payroll taxes by December 31st, 2021, and then the remaining 50% in 2022. And then number 4, I know that, we talk about securing capital and we know what those federal resources are. And a lot of the resources are coming from these sponsors, which is incredible. So keep working with them. Another idea is just looking at local resources. For example, in Southeast Colorado, the Business Support Fund from SECED is maybe an option. And there's probably more. A lot of people are rallying around small businesses right now. So there could be local resources. One good place to check would be to talk to your Economic Development Foundation leaders or someone that works in that office, because they could probably point you in that direction. Okay, and then 5, this is not really legal, but I think this is important. There's a huge opportunity right now for businesses to redesign or diversify their offerings, and this could be, a really great time to do that. So that could look like taking your business online. It could mean setting up a website, using social media in a more intentional way. It could mean new streams of revenue. So maybe you sell things, you sell your products or your services online. Another idea would be, changing your services to be sold as memberships or subscriptions, really just utilizing the different revenue models as we move forward with our businesses. So that's all I have on that. If you have questions in terms of any of the legal side of what I talked about today, follow up with me and I will stay on this call so I can answer any questions at the end. I'll pass back to you, John.
All right, thank you, Jordan. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And I'll take the opportunity to just go ahead and share with everybody these resources, the entire slide deck from today, as well as many more resources are available in the follow-up emails that come after each of our calls each week. So if you are scrambling to grab a pen, we will definitely send this to you. And as well in the chat box, there should be a link for you already to go and download a copy of today's slides. So with that, let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And I want to kind of cue up our conversation with some local businesses today. We're going to be speaking with 3 different businesses from around Southeast Colorado. We've got April from Brew Unto Others. We've got Vance Johnson from the Fairway, and Kaitlyn from Kaitlyn's Flower Barn. And so we're just going to kind of have a conversation back and forth, and we're going to start with April and start with kind of an easy question, same question for all of you. I'd like to just have you introduce yourself, introduce your business, and let us know how long you've been in business. So when did you launch? And go for it, April.
Okay, so my name is April Forg, and I'm the manager of Brew Unto Others coffee shop here in Lamar, Colorado. I've actually managed it for about 3.5 years. We've actually been up and running for over 7 years now. And so, yeah, it's just a little coffee shop where people can come and gather, and we really love it. Our community has really surrounded us.
Excellent. Let's just move over to Vance, and I'll have you take the same question. So introduce yourself, your business, and how long you've been in business.
All right. Can you see me?
Not yet, but we can hear you.
All right. There we are. Hi, guys.
There we go.
My name is Vance Johnson. I am, you said how long we've been in business. I own the Fairway here in La Junta at the golf club. We opened 2/20 of 20 right before all this went down. And we are a chef-driven concept. We like to shop locally. We try to get the best ingredients possible. Local, organic, a lot of just super fresh produce, just something that maybe the Valley hasn't had too much of. And we have a great Fairway family here at the Fairway. And We've just been very lucky that people have continued to support us, and we've gained great momentum through all of this craziness. So we're very happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us. All right, and Kaitlyn, I'm going to have you introduce yourself as well now, and tell us a little bit about your business, and then we'll get in a little bit deeper. Oh, you're muted, Kaitlyn.
Oh, okay. Can you
There
hear
you
me
are.
now?
Yep.
Okay.
We got you.
Sorry,
Thank
first
you.
Zoom call. My name is Kaitlyn McGarry. I'm the owner of Kaitlyn's Bar Barn here in Springfield. I've been in business for almost 5 years. I think like 5 years in August. I have a very large greenhouse that me and my husband rebuilt the first year. I'm like the local supplier of trees and bushes for down here. And I can't remember what else was asked.
Oh, that's perfect. And you guys have a little gift. You guys have a little gift shop in there as well, right?
Yes, I have a gift shop in the front of my business, and then flowers. Pretty much it.
Excellent.
The rest of it.
So I'm just going to stay with you while I've got you. And
Okay.
I actually, the very first question that I want to ask beyond that is how many employees do you have, and what was, how has your business then felt the effect, and how have your employees felt the effect of the shutdown that we've seen?
So it's pretty much just me all year round. If I want to take a day off, or if it's like my busy holidays, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, which is Sunday, the proms, those are always busy. I do bring an employee in. You can see her right there. I also bring in another lady. She went home for the day. She helped quite a bit. So to be honest, like, it really didn't affect us too much. It affected her just because I do take that one day off a week, and that was that lost income there. We lost income because there were no proms. We're probably going to lose. She also helps like at graduations. We're probably going to not have any graduations. So other than that, I haven't been too affected with employees. So I guess I was a little blessed that way, but not any other way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And I got a little bit different question. Well, I guess the same question for you, Vance, if you want to jump back on. One, how many employees do you guys have there at the Fairway, and how has that been affected by the shutdown, or how will it continue to impact the number of staff that you have there?
Well, right before we shut down, we had about 12 employees. And being a restaurant which is catered to people coming in and sitting down and dining in, and having that completely restricted, that's cut out. I mean, about 8 of them were servers, so that, and then dish and stuff. So I've actually had to take on a lot more role of being in the kitchen and actually cooking. I have one of my chefs in today, so she is finally starting to get in. She wasn't able to come in because she had kids, so that's put a little bit of a damper, because of the rest of my staff also have children as well. So not only are they displaced to job, the kids are displaced to school. So then they're not only not able to come in, but they also they also have to take care of their kids. So it's just a whole domino effect. But like I've said, we've just been getting busier and busier, and so now I have one waitress that's been coming in the past couple of days, and slowly we have a large patio and stuff outside, so people will come to our to-go window, they'll order there, and then the golf course is kept a pretty they've stayed open the entire time, so there are a lot of people out there. But hopefully we could just get everybody in, because I know everybody's hurting for money. I've just tried to kind of be there, whether as far as like advancing and stuff like that from my own personal money, like that's about all I've done on that part. But yeah, we have three people in today, so it's actually nice having that energy, not having to do quite as much. But yeah, we're excited to have everybody back, and we'd like to get all 12 of everybody back and then some. So
yeah. Absolutely. Well, and certainly I think everybody is looking forward to that. I think the communities are looking forward to that as well. So April, I'm curious if you could tell us your story there as well. So how many employees do you guys have there, and what shifts have you seen over the last couple of months?
So it's kind of funny. I had a surgery at the end of January, and it was about 4 to 6 weeks before I was back, which was about a week before COVID hit. And literally at that point, I had 7 employees, and we saw our revenue just take a dive. I don't even know, that first week, everyone was pretty terrified. And I lost a barista because the same thing that Vince was saying is, she has 4 young kids and they're out of school now. She doesn't want her elderly grandparents to get sick and have to watch her kids. So she took a month off, which at the time worked really well for us, because we went from needing 7 people to needing maybe 3 or 4 and having to cut hours and really take a run at, are we even going to stay open? That's where we were. And it was a pretty fearful time. We just didn't know where everything was. We were getting different messages from different entities. No one really knew what was going on. And so my little coffee shop, coffee is not that important. You can get that at home. And so we were really just trying to get through those 2 weeks. So there were 2 weeks there that we really struggled and had to think, like Jordan was saying, we had to think, is our business plan working for us? Is this going to work in this environment? And we just decided that we have to do something different if we're going to stay afloat. And so we actually started what we call family dinner bundles. In our area, we have a lot of Mexican food. We have a lot of hamburger places. We have some Chinese places, but all of our good home cooked food places closed down. And so literally, if you don't want a burger, Mexican food, or Chinese, you're out of luck. And so I did what I only know what to do, and that's making comfort food. And so I put myself in the place where all these people that are essential and still working, even though they're terrified to maybe even go to work, they're tired at the end of the day, and they're dealing with a lot of social stuff. Their kids are home. There was just all this stuff going on. And so we started making these family dinner bundles, and lasagna, homemade from scratch. I'm with Vance. We need good product down in this area of Colorado, and it's hard to come by. But when you have a high quality product, people see it and they know it. And so we would do, like, a family bundle would be homemade lasagna. It would be a tossed salad, and it would be like a bread or something like that. And people would order it by noon. That way I didn't have any waste. And they would pick it up between 5 and 6 at night, and it was hot and ready in a pan. And they would pay, and they would go take it home, put it on their table. And it was just a great way to meet a need that people had that kept us afloat, because we didn't. So I've had to actually hire people in the last few weeks to accommodate that. So now that our coffee's coming back a little bit, I'm kind of going, how am I going to keep this up? Because now I have a morning group we're slammed. And then now I have this family bundle group in the afternoon where our kitchen is tapped out. So really thankful. We started with 7 2 months ago, and we're at 8 now. So really thankful. And I know I'm hearing from a lot of people, communities are stepping up and really helping these businesses, and we're seeing that too.
That's incredible. It's amazing how fast things can change when you have the ability to meet the challenge, and not just kind of get stuck, wondering what's going to happen, but to make an adjustment and move forward. So that's excellent. Kaitlyn, I got a question for you that April's just kind of perfectly teed up, and that is, how do you either how have you pivoted your business model, or how do you anticipate that you'll need to pivot your business model in order to make up for that lost revenue that you were mentioning in proms and graduations, and we're coming into wedding season, and I imagine that's going to look a little bit different this year. So I'm curious how you're thinking about the future and how you're thinking about doing things differently, if at all.
So in the beginning, when this first happened, I saw another flower shop like in many states away do a take-home flower kit. So I offered that. And that brought in a lot of money. It cleared out my cooler because I wasn't expecting to not be at work for a while. So then all my fresh flowers didn't go bad. So that was nice there. I think a week after I closed, I received all of my trees and bushes. And I thought, oh goodness, how am I supposed to sell trees and bushes when I'm not even at work? So I posted all of them on Facebook with prices, which I hardly post prices on Facebook. And I sold all of them within a week. And then I also ordered all new inventory before this hit and thought, oh my gosh, now I have all this brand new inventory. No one's coming in my store. So I slowly just started posting, like, if I got a bunch of pictures, I posted that group on Facebook, and I got a lot of response that way. If I got coffee mugs, I posted that on Facebook, and the same thing, a lot of response. And then I think my greenhouse, I opened it almost 2 weeks ago this coming Monday. And I put an ad in the Tri-State Exchange, and I put an ad in our local newspaper, and I was sold out of my greenhouse in like 9 days, I think it was. So I sold out like 2 days ago, probably. To continue on in the future, I plan on posting more pictures because I don't see a lot of foot traffic in the stores. Other than that, really just Facebook. A lot of people, I don't know, I don't get it. I don't even get our newspaper here in Springfield, so it's kind of hard for me to advertise in it. But I will say, April, I saw the Brew Onto Others post about those foods, and I thought that they looked amazing, and I thought that was like the coolest idea ever. Our Trails End here in Springfield does that, but not every night. And I must say, like, working and being a mom it's very convenient to have that. So.
Awesome, thanks. So Vance, just you have kind of a unique situation, I think, that at least among this group, and I think there are a lot in this position, not only in our area, but certainly around the state and the nation. But I'm interested, you launched at either the worst time ever to launch or the best time ever, right? And so the timing was amazing to be going into a new venture in February of 20. And I'm curious, the same thing. I'm certain that all of the planning that you did and the way that you laid this all out on paper or in your mind prior to being in the situation, you didn't know any of this. And so I'm curious now, being right at the front end of your tenure there, how have you already adjusted what you're thinking and your planning and strategies? And to what degree do you think that those are going to be permanent changes versus something that's just kind of a bridge to get you, through a short period of time?
So you're asking me, like, what, as far as like how we're gonna going forward? I mean, for me, yeah, it was a very interesting time to launch because we had absolutely no clue about COVID at that time. Granted, 2/20, it was February 20th. And we just were trying to get everything done. We just liked those numbers that it looked on paper, 2020. So we made it happen, got it open by then. And we really got to have a good taste from the community as far as what we're offering, what we're trying to do moving forward, what we're trying to bring to the Valley. Like, I think it was April who was saying, or one of the two was saying, we don't have choices here. So we don't have a lot of choices here. So yeah, it is giving people down here a great option and an alternative option to just easy, greasy food. which, I mean, there's a lot of fast food and stuff down here, but I mean, people down here deserve a nice option, and it is 2020, and there's no reason that there shouldn't be a more moderately upscale place down here that offers those fresh ingredients, you know. And it's like, the more that this is going on, the more we've tried to help local ranchers and farmers. And like, a lot of our product comes, we get our beef from Northern Colorado farms. We've gotten our beef from Rocky Ford Farms, Mesa Beef, we've gotten from them before. So Hannigan's Market and stuff like that. So we're really just trying to push that, and that trying to get those people also the exposure, letting them know that we might be a small town, but there is the ability to make great food and grow great food as well. But yeah, and right after the shutdown, it became like, it's like, shoot, we've only been open, I think, a month or so, you know, and we had such high momentum. In the beginning, it just went like this. And for us, it's a little bit different because we do have alcohol. And I mean, alcohol makes up, what, 60 to 70%, if not more, of your revenue. So that took a huge hit. And I hadn't thought about that earlier, or I would have mentioned it. But other than that, I mean, it's really given us a chance. We did a full kind of a remodel of the restaurant. I don't know if you can kind of see it in the back, but I got a bunch of booths and some new tables and stuff like that. So really, we went from a place where we were like, should we just close down throughout this? Like, are people even going to be responsive? Are they going to want to order to goes? Like, have we made that big of a name? And so for us, we were like, you know what, let's just stay open as much as we can. We actually just like extended our hours, made it more comfortable to be here, to try and cater to people in the community and try to really just be there for every single person, not closing in between hours, and just being there for those people who want to come in the awkward 2:30, 3:30 times, where other restaurants tend to close. But yeah, I don't know, does that answer?
Excellent. Yeah, that answered it pretty good. And actually, I'm gonna just kind of, I wanted to prolong that conversation because I was really enjoying that. I think this is the reason that we do this. But now, just kind of being up against the time clock, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of scoot through the closing here. But before I do, I want to thank all three of you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Jordan, for joining us. Again, want to remind everybody that the slides are available, as well as the recording of today's meeting and the previous ones. You can find those if you go to YouTube and just search Choose Colorado. And I would encourage you to check out the presentations that are going on in other parts of the state each week as well. There's some amazing stories from other entrepreneurs and how they're shifting their business models to deal with the current reality. So there's a lot of great stuff there as well. Check out the coloradosbdc.org/COVID. There's some wonderful resources there. We'll include more resources in the follow-up email that we send out later today. And then if you still got questions, definitely hit us up with an email at startupco.colorado.edu, and then check out startupcolorado.org for other things. Want to plug the podcast real quick. There's some amazing stories and they're just short bite-sized pieces. So if you're a podcaster and you listen to podcasts and now your commute is cut down to 5 minutes only to and fro work, these are perfect for you. So check out those podcasts at startupcolorado.org/podcast. And then next week, we've got teed up a conversation with some small farm producers and talking about farmers markets and what that might look like this spring in our area. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week at 2 p.m. on Friday.